Hello. Today I want to overview Module 2 and the main content in Module 2 focuses on the instructional design plan. And I just want to emphasize that the instructional design plan is the main part of this course. So Module 2 and the instructional design plan, this is the major part of the work in the course. The instructional design plan becomes your final project that gets submitted at the end of the course, and we're going to cover and work on most of the components of the instructional design plan in this module. What's not in Module 2 that's in the plan is your assessment, and that'll be Module 3, and then your reflections, which is in Module 4 as we wrap up the course. So this is a very important module, and that's why we want to pay particular attention to the various parts of the module. And today I'd like to give you a little overview of the instructional design plan and then focus in on the first part of the instructional design plan, which is the unit outline. And that's the first assignment that's coming up. So let's get started. The first thing you notice here, of course, you want to read your Module 2 introduction. The parts of Module 2 we're not going to be talking about today. There's a reading log, just one this time, and the literacy activities. We're going to come back and look into that a little bit later. Then there's the ESL, ELL component, and the lesson planning, which is the last part of the module. Okay, now focusing in on the unit, we're going to look at the unit outline, but before we do that, we're going to look at the overall instructional design plan. There's two documents here. The first one is everything about the instructional design plan, and then the second one is the focuses in on the unit. So let's look at that first document. That's this one. You'll see in this document there are 4 sections. The first section is the unit outline. That's what we're focusing on today. At the end of the module, we'll be doing our lesson plan, so we'll come back to that. And then, as I mentioned, Module 3 will be focused on the assessment component, and then to wrap things up at the end in Module 4, the unit reflection. So let's go to the unit outline. The first part of this document is the same as that section 1 that you saw in the instructional design plan. What's different here is this table, and this goes into the details in what you need to have in your unit outline that's due first. The example that we use in this first part, which is just the general information for the unit, there's an example topic here, which is British literature. It's in an English course, and it's at grade level 12. There's a section here for the source of your curriculum materials. There's a textbook referenced here, and then there's an online source, the Cambridge History of English and American Literature. So of course we use textbooks, but today with the internet there's just a lot of excellent resources out there for us to integrate into our lesson planning. Now the next part of the unit outline is a description of the unit. This is where you put your title, which is some subset of the overall topic. So in this case it's a subset of British literature is what you would focus on in British literature for this particular unit. Now the rest of this description here is very generic. It's the kind of things you want to include in any unit, in any content area, and it's based upon what topic you've decided to cover in your unit. The first thing is having that title, and then the rationale, which is basically answering these questions to justify why you picked this particular content to cover in your unit. Now, of course, these days we focus in pretty quickly on the standards that we need to address in our curriculum, but keep in mind that there are reasons for teaching the content that go beyond the standards, or you could say these are the reasons that the standards exist to justify why we teach this content. Going on to the next section, the learning outcomes. These are your unit objectives. They are general objectives. They are broader than the kinds of objectives that you'll write in your lesson plans. So your unit objectives, there are a few objectives you want to state here. Again, they are probably addressing what you're seeing in your content area standards, but these are the kind of objectives that you want to focus on before you get to narrowing things down in your particular lessons. A couple more things that go into the unit outline. You've already looked at least one professional organization, and hopefully you've found some resources in that organization, the kinds of resources that you can use for teaching in your content area. And what you say in this part of the unit outline is what you found and how you're going to use it in this particular unit on the subject that you've decided to write the unit about. The next part is has to do with the literacies. Now, this unit outline is due before we get into the literacy study, so for this first assignment you don't have to worry about this section of the unit outline, but it will be required to have this in your final unit outline when you submit it as part of the instructional design plan at the end of the course. So just leave this off for now. Don't worry about it. We're going to come back to this soon in Module 2. And then the last section of the unit outline is basically what's called your scope and your sequence. It's your lesson plans, and it's just a listing of your lesson plans. The lesson plans represent the scope of your unit. You want to give a list of the topics or titles for your lesson plans in a sequence as you would teach them in the unit. So that's the scope and sequence here. Along with the topic or title of your lesson plans, you need to include what standards you're addressing for those lessons. And you remember we worked on this before, where you're going to choose at least one of your TEKs for your content area. And then if you have one of the core content areas, choose something from the CCRS standards in the content. And then you have your ELP standards for language learners. You need to choose one of those standards for each lesson. And then don't forget the cross-disciplinary standards in the CCRS standards. You should have at least one of the cross-disciplinary standards for each of your lessons. Now, you're not writing lesson plans at this point. You're just listing the titles and the standards that you're trying to address in each of your lesson plans. This covers the whole unit though. It's a 10 to 15 day unit or a 2 to 3 week unit. And that means you should have the topics or titles for all of the lessons in your unit. For the instructional design plan, you're only going to develop a minimum of 5 of those lessons into fully developed lesson plans, and you'll choose which of those 5 lessons you'll develop later on. So part of your total unit lesson plans you're going to be choosing as a sequence of lessons to write the whole lessons. Okay, and that's pretty much it for the unit outline. If you have any questions, be sure and write a message or bring it up in the discussion section so that we can all see what's going on and everybody can get an idea of what kinds of questions are coming up for this assignment. All right, thank you.